Hey, how you getting on? Today on Microdosing Midlife Crisis, we learned that size matters, at least when it comes to guitar cabs. And Pete. So this video is just a little anecdotal test about guitar cabinets, specifically this lovely Engl 1x12 here, which was originally sent to me by Engl for the still ongoing Vintage 30 Battle Royale, that speaker shootout to find my nicest Vintage 30. I needed a 1x12, a decent sounding 1x12 for the room sounds in that video, because obviously I need to isolate the speakers, as there can only be one speaker playing at the time to record the room sound. So Engl was nice enough to send this cab over, and my opinion about 1x12s was they're not really worth it. They sound small and tinny, and why bother? Just get a 2x12. But like most of my early guitar opinions, and you know, some of those early guitar opinions are still with me, that opinion was rooted in ignorance, because when I got this cab and I played it for the first time, it really changed my mind. And I want to demonstrate that today with a little test. You can see the camera setup is a little different. You can see my disgustingly dirty floor because these cabs are obviously a lot smaller than the 4x12s that I usually use. But still, what I'm going to do today is just compare the Engl 1x12 to this Hesu Wizard 1x12 here, which is a lot smaller, which is the cab I previously used for the room sounds in my speaker videos. As of the last few months, I've been using the Engl, and you'll find out why. And I want to compare the Engl 1x12 to an Engl 2x12 as well, just to give you an impression of how different these cabs can sound, especially those two 1x12s can sound to each other. Anyway, I've got SM57s on both of these cabs using these gravity cab clamps here. And both of these have Vintage 30s. And now from most of my videos, you know that no two Vintage 30s sound alike. But this has my former reference speaker, the 2000 Vintage 30 and 8 ohms. And this has a 2002 Vintage 30 and 8 ohms in it. So they will sound a little different, but the same ballpark. They have very similar characteristics. And I think the differences you're about to hear go way beyond the production tolerance of Vintage 30. I'm recording them both with SM57s, as I said, and I'm recording room sounds as well with a stereo pair of Sennheiser MKH 8020. So the objective of this little test, just to show you how different guitar cabinets can make speaker sound, is not just the speaker in that occasion, it is the cabinet as well, and more so than I personally have thought it would be. I'm gonna play some riffs using the Marshall JVM 410H next to me here, and I'll be switching back and forth between these two cabs using the KHE amp switcher behind me. And I want to start off with the room sounds first, because I think the difference in that is more profound than the close mic sound, but the close mic sound is pretty different as well, as you're about to hear. So I'm going to start off with the Hesu cabinet here. Now the Engl. And the difference between those two cabs really freaked me. Now, in the room, the Hesu is louder, but it also seems more narrow. There's not as much low end. It just seems like all the frequencies are squished together and projected out more beam-like, while the Engl cab sounds, to my ears, much more natural, much more pleasant, much more like what I'm used to with bigger cabinets. There seems to be more space in the low end. It breathes a little more. And this do the same thing with the close mics. Now, based on my pre-testing, the differences in close miking aren't as large as they are in the room. Funnily enough, the volume difference isn't as pronounced close miking. In fact, I don't think there is any. Both of the Neve 511 preamp modules in my 500 series rack are set the exact same. Now, personally, I much prefer the sound of the Engl cabinet over that of the Hesu cabinet, which is why I've been using the Engl cabinet in my speaker videos for the last couple of months. Also, funny anecdote, this was a cabinet that I actually had intended to send back to Engl. I didn't want to keep this initially, but as I said, I really fell in love with this and I asked Jürgen if we could renege on that. And yeah, we came to an agreement. It's staying here. And I have more plans for this cabinet going forward, but more on that later. So you might want to consider this video sponsored. I forgot to mention that. With that being said, the Hesu cabinet is by no means bad. It doesn't sound bad. It's not built bad. In fact, it's built very well, much like the Engl cabinet. It's a full plywood construction. No complaints there. And of course, it's much smaller and lighter, so it's more portable. I just prefer the sound of this cabinet a lot more. Now, before we take a brief look inside of the Engl and how it's built, I want to compare it to an Engl 2x12 just to see how big the difference is there. This is the Engl 2x12. I have it mic'd up. Is it in frame at all? Barely. I've got the right-hand speaker from your perspective mic'd up with the SM57 in the same position again. This is a 2003 vintage 30, so again, same ballpark, but not the exact same speaker. This is more anecdotal than anything else. But just saying that, I think I compared both of these cabinets with the exact same speaker preparing for the Vintage 30 Battle Royale. And if I have a clip of that still, I'm going to play it now. If not, there'll just be awkward silence. Or perhaps both. Anyway, let's compare these close mic'd. Now, if I did my job correctly with miking up these speakers, the difference shouldn't have been too profound. There's a slight difference between the speakers, of course, and there's a slight low-end difference, if I remember correctly. But apart from that, very similar, pretty much the same ballpark. When it comes to the room, I'd say it is similar, but this cab obviously has more volume, and you can feel the low end in the room a little more. Let's see if that comes across through the Sennheiser sound. Yeah, pretty much what I expected. They share a lot of qualities, but this is just more. You just get more of everything. There's more low end, there's more high end definition, but the qualities are the same. It's very similar tone wise. Anyway, enough sounds. Let's take a look at the cabinet itself, shall we? And for that, I have a little surprise. Another one. And I've been thinking about this for quite a while because I think 2 months ago, I made a little test on how different speaker brands or different speaker types in the same cab may affect each other sonically. I was always a little worried that that result might be of an order of magnitude that puts me in trouble because the way I test speakers is they go in the same cab, they go in the same Marshall 4x12, and if those speakers in there potentially influence each other too much, then my test is pretty much worthless. Now, to my delight, the result of that test was that the difference is pretty much minor. As long as you close mic the speaker, it doesn't really matter so much what the other speaker is. But still, I was working on a plan B. What would I do if the differences were large? And I thought I could use two 1x12. So I I asked the guys at Engl if they would sell me another one with these without the speaker in it. We worked out a deal again. The guys at Engl are great. And as you can see, the foil is still on here. I've been waiting for this. Here's some ASMR for you. And here you can see I moved the logo on this one. And that is my only criticism about this cabinet, because the way the logo is stock, it's right in the way where I would mic up an SM57. But luckily, it's just clipped on from the back. Once you take this grill off, which we will in a sec, you can just reposition the logo. And I moved it up because I thought it looked nicer than the logo on the bottom, or without the logo even. And speaking of the speaker videos, I'm going to be making my next speaker video probably without the Marshall 4x12 and just using the 1x12s just as a test to see if that's any better than the regular speaker video. So stay tuned for that. The metal grill is just held on by 4 screws in this case that are screwed into these little nupsies here. You can see that this is a porter cab. There's one bass reflex port on the front here for increased low end. And these grills, they're made of steel. They're pretty heavy. They contribute quite a bit to the overall weight of Engl cabs. For the 1x12, it's very manageable. And here you can see those clips. I don't know if this will focus. These are just kind of spring clips. You can plop them out, move the logo up a little further. Speakers mounted with 4 hex bolts that I seem to have misplaced somewhere in the front. And as this is a front-loading cab, you need an additional gasket for your speakers that gets stuck on the back of the frame for the most part, just to keep this airtight. Seeing as how I change out speakers quite frequently in my cabinets, including the front-loaded ones, I use these gaskets. Stick them on the cabs, same difference, but that means I don't have to buy a whole bunch of those gaskets to stick on the speakers. Let me grab one of the cameras. As you can see, beautiful birch plywood, heavily braced. This cab is thick and stiff, nice thick baffle, decently thick wires. Yeah, it's a solid cabinet. And it sounds great. So what was the point of this video? Well, really 2 things. I learned I was wrong about something, and I think some of you might be wrong about your impression of 1x12s as well, and I thought I'd share that. And the other thing is, through that discovery, I think we might want to look into cabinet constructions going forward in future videos. In general, I think that might be a topic that is still a little overlooked or underrepresented on YouTube anyway. So you might want to test different grill materials, different dimensions of cabinets, different thicknesses. So maybe we'll start some DIY project videos on that. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Just a short little video, just a little anecdotal test. Thank you very much to Engl Amplification for, being great supporters, great friends, and yeah, hooking me up with cool stuff for videos. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.